The American people are asking themselves right now, how does the worst debate performance in their lifetimes match up with the reality of this upcoming presidential election? And we're going to get right into it. First and foremost, obviously, this is coming up really close to when the debate happened 2 days ago, and so the polling isn't really caught up yet. So we're going to have a time capsule and to peek into how the election was pointing towards before the debate and then what happened after. Okay, so as you can see here, Trump is winning overall 1v1 against Biden by 1.8% in the aggregate. Now, that's an amazing result. This is the highest Trump has been over Biden basically this entire election cycle for the most part. That is to say, of course, that he was already winning the election when the debate was happening. Now, afterwards became the worst crapshoot you'd ever seen. Now, a lazy way to address this topic is to just look at the headlines that are all obviously in the affirmative for Donald Trump trouncing Joe Biden. But let's look into the actual numbers, and we've got them right here even. Now, just to give you a little bit of a brief summary as to what the polls are saying right now. Again, these are not really fully fleshed in, obviously. You remember when Trump got convicted, he also went up in fundraising in the polls, but it took like 3 days or so. So these are really, really preemptive polling results. But just to kind of show you what is out there, we have Trump up by 2, Biden up by 1, Trump up by 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2. Now, that's pretty impressive. And also, we do have some polling as to whether or not some other candidates would beat Trump, like Pete Buttigieg, J.B. Pritzker, the really fat guy, the governor of the state that houses Chicago. Yeah, that crapshoot of a city. Yes, of course, that crime-ridden, infested city. Yes, okay, so Illinois, you've got that guy. You've got Amy Klobuchar. I was going to say Devin Booker. No, he's not that cool. Cory Booker, okay? Still in the closet as of this year, by the way. You have Shapiro from Pennsylvania and some other people. Gavin Newsom is what the boomers call him, who might be in the running for Antichrist. Not even kidding about that. So anyway, the polling looks pretty promising for Donald Trump. Obviously, these polls are interesting for a couple of different reasons. Like, for example, Morning Consult having Biden up in the popular vote by 1 is absolutely asinine. But Morning Consult isn't the best opinionator. Another vector on how to have some sort of analysis and gauge for what we were walking into for this debate politically, you have to look at the disapproval and approval ratings of either candidate. Okay, so Joe Biden had a negative spread of about 18%, whereas Trump's negative is only 11.3, more or less. And that kind of shows you that Trump was, while also a pariah in his own right to a lot of people, he is still more fundamentally sound politically insofar as approval is concerned. When it came to this election. Now, moving on to some of the details, let's have some illustrations for my point being proven here. So Biden performed worse even than expectations. Remember, guys, we had the liberals saying, well, as long as he doesn't fall apart in the debate, as long as he's somewhat cognizant, then maybe he would actually do well in the debate relative to a low bar. He didn't even cross the low bar is the problem. What's so depressing about this is that it's kind of the equivalent to saying, well, we're rebuilding. And so we're not tanking as a football team, but we might only win 6 games and lose 11. But, you know, Biden did the equivalent of saying not even 6 wins because your quarterback died in the first game. And so now you're losing every single facet. And so it's even worse than expected, even though you had the low bar to begin with. It's a disgusting reality. Now, look at what the projection was. Okay, so people generally, when polled, thought that Biden was going to do a little below average, which is in line with his approval rating, 40%. Yeah, of course. So he's not going to do great. People viscerally understand, even though they might not have thought before that, okay, the guy's senile, they thought, okay, I mean, he's not in his prime. But for this to be such a fall off is incredible. Incredible. Now, look at this. Trump did about in line with expectations. So his bar was pretty normal. The bar for Trump was just don't screw over your lead over Biden. You're obviously sharper and nobody would debate that Trump is more vivacious, which sounds kind of gay, but it's true that he's more alive. He comes off as more present in the moment than does Joe Biden. So all he has to do is not poop the party and don't do what he did in the first debate where he objectively lost according to the polls. In that first debate, by the way, Donald Trump came off as too aggressive. Yes, Joe Biden was slower than Donald, but he was still cognizant enough 4 years ago to kind of be in contention as being a living human being. Now, part of the reason why Joe Biden underperformed even these meager expectations is for a couple of different reasons. Liberals would cite examples as recently as a few months ago where at the State of the Union, Joe Biden looked cognizant, he looked aware of what was happening. Now, obviously, as somebody who doesn't like Joe, I can notice that he was high as a kite for one, and there's nothing wrong with popping an Adderall. A lot of great people do. The question comes, you wear out of the drugs eventually, and so in a pressure scenario, are you going to keep popping Adderall like you were at the State of the Union? And then 2, and the most important reason, not even the drugs, in my opinion, is that, yes, of course, you're reading a teleprompter, Joe, and so you're going to be very easily capable of reading a teleprompter. Anybody's grandpa could do it, even if they're 80. Now, when it comes to freeballing and freestyling, that's where a true rapper's prime is shown. If you can freestyle, you're a good rapper. If you're just reading somebody else's lyrics, you are no better than Drake. And so, in this case, Joe Biden was exposed. He had basically a mental ghostwriter. Anytime he used a teleprompter, like in the State of the Union, he was actually aware of things, or he came off that way. So then, when people just expected some sort of modicum of coherency when he speaks, or the ability to end a sentence on a high note, Joe Biden failed that expectation. And that's why he underperformed relative to Donald Trump. So again, Donald Trump debated better, honestly, 8 years ago, and he was younger, and that's fine. But the thing is that he still was okay. Whereas with Joe Biden, he fell off a cliff. And mind you, Donald Trump, according to a lot of centrists and liberals, lied about a lot of things. And honestly, I would concede, yeah, he totally did fib about a lot. It's kind of like the salesman sort of thing. Like, I did the greatest, whatever. Okay, but even with that perception of him being like a BS guy, like a snake oil salesman, he still did better than Joe for the simple fact that Joe kind of just fell off. Now, here's the most killer metric this late into the video. Like the video, by the way. I feel like this level of nuance, I love it. I'm a nerd. So Ipsos polling got likely voters before and after the debate. They had an expectation range of about 2.62 out of 5. So a very mediocre expectation basis for Joe Biden. He ended up resulting with a 1.99 out of 5. Okay. If you were told, hey, you got to sleep in a 1.99 star hotel, you'd think, how many cockroaches are going to be in my hair by the time I wake up? And so this is a horrible bar to be setting right here. And he underperformed it. It's disgusting. In fact, when with Donald, he was given an expectation of a 3.0 out of 5. He ended up with a 3.04 out of 5, and a 3 out of 5 ain't bad. And so, that's above average expectation. And he outset that. Okay, now here's another one. Joe Biden had a score out of 5 of the people before they watched the debate of 2.4 in terms of mental fitness for being president, okay? It went down to 2.23. So it's a decrease of 0.17. That's about a 8% decrease in confidence insofar as he is mentally capable of being president. Now, these are likely voters, and so imagine an 8% shift towards the negative for either candidate in an election that is going to be polarized and will be somewhat close just for that simple basis, okay? That's a killer statistic right there. Now, look at this. Trump's physical fitness was a 3.06 out of 5, and then after the debate, it went up to 3.16, so that's a 5%, I think, or 3% increase. And so while Trump obviously didn't go up a ton because people already had higher hopes for him being physically fit for being president, it actually went up, and Biden's went down when he was already in a deficit. That's horrible. Now, another piece of exculpatory evidence is that we have CNN's own pollster, Shock, like right after the debate happened. What was the poll saying for CNN itself? Again, slanted against Joe Biden? No, of course not. It was an anti-Trump poll, if anything. Either way, let's add some credibility to it. Maybe there's some truth to this poll, in which case my point is proven succinctly. Look at this. Pre-debate, in the days before it, people were expecting Trump to beat Biden by like 10%, as if like to say 55% of people thought, okay, Trump's going to win. Joe sucks at debating nowadays. Whereas post-debate, the gulf went from a negative 10-point split for Biden to a negative 34. So he over tripled the amount of people that thought, wow, what the hell happened here? Okay, so think about that. You beat a guy 2-1 in a debate. What's so important about this is that they're not debating over what football team is better or what gun shoots the best bullet. We're talking about something that really matters here, the presidency. And we have an election where we're looking at two candidates in a polarized situation, of course. So, a polling result, if both candidates are competent, ought to look like 55-45. I can't really make it out. Maybe Hillary did beat Trump in debate 1 or whatever have you. But now all of a sudden, Biden's only getting 33% of people saying that he won the debate. And Joe Biden is probably going to get, let's say, 45% of the popular vote just because it is a presidential election. So even if you're losing, like John McCain still got over 40% of the vote just by getting destroyed by Obama. Anyway, the point being is that if Joe Biden is going to get over 40% of the popular vote, that means that there's a gulf. That means that like 1 in 4 Biden voters that are going to vote for Biden in November are going to have that thought in their mind of like, what the dude, this guy objectively got his ass kicked. And if that's true, which it is, according to CNN, out of all people, by the way, all sources, then Joe Biden's looking horrible in this case. Because again, imagine if 1 in 5, 1 in 4 Trump voters that are going to put in their ballot in November knew that their guy lost objectively. That never happened for Donald, and he still only narrowly lost. Now imagine you add that negative externality to Joe Biden. Remember, part of the reason why Joe Biden wanted this election to happen, this debate to happen, was because they thought that if they rigged the results enough of the debate itself, the scheduling, the rules, everything, the moderators, everything, that they would have had a better chance. And they were basically saying, I'm going to give you a poison pill that you cannot refuse or that you can't take. Basically implying like, you know what, here's a very shitty prospect of a debate chance for you to debate me, Trump. I know you won't take it. And then Trump calls their bluff and he takes this slanted rigged debate and he still destroyed Biden. This is a horrible look. Okay, another little thing here. 96% of Republicans watching the debate said that Trump did a better job than Biden. Duh. Whereas only 69% of Democrats thought that Biden did better. So you can't win an election with losing a third of your own people, especially when you're not winning independents. Think about that, okay? In order to win an election at this point in history, you need to win virtually every person in your party, whether that be Democrat or Republican, plus most likely a majority, even a slight one, in the independent vote share, the centrist, so to speak. So for Biden to already be losing the independents, as evidenced by the fact that he was already losing the polls by now and for months, really, and in all the battlegrounds, Trump's winning, by the way. If that's the case, then if he's losing even more support among Democrats themselves, that's really bad. And it doesn't mean that those Democrats, those 30% that are saying that Trump beat Biden, it doesn't mean that even 10% of them will vote for Trump. It just means that even if the smallest trickle does switch that way, it's even worse for Joe. And again, it's not even that they have to even vote for Trump. They just need to sit it out or even vote for anybody else that isn't Joe Biden. Here's another killer thing. A lot of liberals will tell you, well, you know, incumbents do bad in their first debate because they're rusty or whatever, which again, doesn't really matter because they're both kind of incumbents. So that's kind of thrown out the window. But the second contention they would say is, well, debates historically don't really change people's opinion. Well, the reason why they don't really change people's opinion is because you have two competent adults arguing. And so you could come out the other side saying, well, my guy won, but he kind of fumbled one thing or something like that. Like, let's say Romney lost most of the debates to Obama. Objectively true. Okay, but Romney was still an eloquent, smart, 60-year-old white guy. He looked with it. You would trust him to take care of your children in a pinch. Whereas with Joe Biden, it's the exact opposite. He thinks, you know, I love kids jumping on my lap, okay? That sort of thing. I mean, it's off-putting, and his debate performance in and of itself was off-putting as well. Now, here is the killer like I was trying to get to. 81% of registered voters said that the debate had no impact on their vote, which is fine because, again, nobody's voting yet. It's very early on in the process. But also, this is completely in line with my expectation. Yeah, of course, most people have their mindset. This debate also wouldn't have changed my mind for Trump. If Trump pulled a Biden somehow, I would still vote for Donald Trump. Does that make me a hypocrite? No. But it's also to say that my vote's very locked in. I've had this Trump flag up here for like 5 years or something. Okay, so we're locked in since high school. But when it comes down to it, we have 14% of people saying that it made them reconsider, but didn't change their mind. Now, think about it. Trump won 2/3 of the debate audience, vaguely. So 2/3 of that 14% are reconsidering, but toward Trump. And so even though they're not locked in yet, as in there's several months out from this election, we still have another 4 months and a week. It still means that they're reconsidering towards the negative. Imagine if your girlfriend said, I'm reconsidering being with you, but I'm not dumping you yet. You'd feel insecure as crap because there's always that chance that she could cheat on you or leave you. And so these are those people right here, 14%, 2/3 of them leaning Trump, obviously. Also, this is the kill shot right here for Joe Biden's campaign. Just 5% say that it changed their minds about whom to vote for. Well, guess what? 2/3 of people came away with the result of Trump winning. So if 5% changed their vote, and you could obviously say that 2/3 of them thought that Trump won the debate, that means they changed their vote for Trump. And so that means that Trump netted about 3% of the people that saw the debate, which translates to a popular vote gain of about 2 to 3%, which is huge, of course, because if Trump were to do 2 to 3% better in the popular vote, the guy's already at 5%, okay? So let's look at an analogous example. Barack Obama beat Mitt Romney handily by about 4%. Okay, he won the popular vote by 3.9% if I'm reading this right. Now, what's interesting about this is that, again, Trump is poised. If the CNN math is right, which again should be slanted against Trump anyhow, it shows that if Trump gains a popular vote advantage over Biden by about 5%, that means that he's going to lose by the amount that Romney lost by, or even worse, actually. And so that's a sort of handsome victory for Donald Trump, where he's not only winning the popular vote, but he's also winning what matters, which is the Electoral College. And so imagine what sort of mandate that would be, where Trump wins by Obama margins, where he wins by 5% of the popular vote, gets over 51%, and wins not a landslide, because of course politics are polarized. So even if you do have a corpse as the Democrat, he still will somehow win California. So, I mean, this is as close as a landslide you might get or see in our lifetimes going forward. Another issue. Only 3% of people that supported Trump before the debate say they'd be open to changing back to Biden, whereas 5% of Biden supporters before the debate said they'd consider voting for Trump. So that's worse because, again, this is all under the pretense that Trump was already leading the popular vote. He was already, 60 to 40 odds chance of winning anyway. And my conviction says he was going to win before the debate anyhow. This just solidifies it. And then another factoid of this poll shows that there's more openness in the Biden camp for going to Trump. And again, of those 5% of Biden voters that would consider swapping, obviously 2/3 of them came with the conclusion that their guy lost the debate. And so that's an amazing factoid. Also, there are some copes. People will say, well, you know what? Joe Biden has another debate lined up against Trump in September. Well, guess what? If a lot of people's contention with Biden in this debate was that he was too old and that he's too out of it, what the hell does it mean if 100 days from now Biden goes again? Like, he's going to be even older. Like, what the fuck are you expecting? And again, this is for re-election. This isn't for who wins right now. It's about who's going to be president in 4 years or more. Okay? Think about it. You have to, if you're voting for Biden, you have to be under the illusion that he will somehow do better in a debate where he's 3 months older. Okay. And then on top of that, you have to assume that he's also going to be with it enough in 4 more years after that, which is insane. Okay. If you have a car that's shutting down on the freeway and you say, you know what, how about you endorse this car to go another 100 miles? You're on crack, much like the president's son even. And so it's a really disgusting thing to even consider. To wrap up the CNN portion of this video, again, we're in the trenches giving you the most nuanced sort of analysis. Again, I'm the chief of the nerds, okay, baby? You like the video, I'll know that you are with me in the trenches of political nerdom. But moving on. After the debate, 57% of debate watchers say they have no real confidence in Biden's ability to lead the country. So again, 57% as of right now think that they don't have, that Biden as president is not competent. 4 years from now, make that make sense. Also, keep in mind, folks, in 2020, about 50% of people thought that Joe Biden was too old, okay? So 2024, that's an outright majority, obviously. I would actually say that about 70-ish% of Americans overall think that Joe Biden has some sort of mental faculty issues. How the could he possibly win? And what's your recompense, liberals? Your runner-up, Kamala, presumably, is less popular than Joe Biden. I don't know how the hell that's even possible, but it's true. And so from that standpoint, it's really absurd. But even, and I don't know what your bench is, Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom, who I respect a lot politically. He's a silver-tongued bastard, but still. And again, Trump's, he's also super Biden moment. I'm misreading something. So when it comes down to it, no real confidence in Trump's ability to lead the country is at 44%. So that's a 13% difference between the two candidates. That's a great look for Donald Trump. Now, people are calling this a double hater election where obviously people are really pissed at both of their contestants. It's not like you have a very nice, loving guy like, let's say, Ronald Reagan versus a Joe Biden. It's a Donald Trump who a lot of people view with a bunch of epithets in their mind when they think of the guy. And so, let's see what these numbers tell us right here. So neither candidate scores high on the margin of aggressive support for confidence in their leadership qualities. And so 36% of debate watchers say they have a lot of confidence in Trump's ability to lead the country, whereas only 14% say the same of Biden. So that's a huge, huge difference. Again, why? The reason being is that the people that 36% of debate watchers that say they have a lot of confidence in Trump's ability are going to be high turnout likely voters. Whereas only 14% of the highly likely voters that would be Democrats usually have that of Biden. And so when it comes down to turnout, this is a metric that Trump's going to be killing Joe Biden on rhetorically and politically, because clearly there's about a 2.5 difference in enthusiasm among the people that are diehards. That's a huge component of this election. Not so much that, 51% of people will vote for Trump versus Biden. It's literally, it goes down to, even if you only have 45% support, let's say like Donald Trump in theory, as long as that 45% just goes out to vote more so than the 51% that vote for the Democrat, the Republican wins, and vice versa. In fact, for Joe Biden, the way that he won the election was obviously through mail-in ballots and increased turnout despite the lack of enthusiasm for a boring guy like him, was also due to the fact of like voter harvesting in Michigan, stuff like this, okay, folks? So stuff that was used in COVID times to kind of like have a pretext to increase turnout for no reason is now kind of issued away. And so actually the votes in this election might be down from 2020, which is a good thing for Donald Trump. Now let's break down some more numbers. Again, I'm being really thorough, but I'm in love right now with this, okay? I was waiting for years to see Joe Biden take an L like this, and oh my God, I'm so happy. But look at this. Debate watchers have a 30% lead of Trump doing better with immigration. Trump's also leading by 25% on the economy. He's leading on foreign policy by 12%. Debate watchers trust Biden over Trump by only 6% on democracy, and on abortion by only 8%. Now, this is insane. Abortion is an issue that Biden ought to be beating Trump on by like 25% if he were good at marketing himself. I think a Bill Clinton would do great back in the day insofar as abortion is concerned. Roe v. Wade is the one thing the Democrats have over Trump. In fact, over Republicans writ large. Just that with Trump, it doesn't really affect him as much as other Republicans down ballot. In fact, in 2022, what was one big reason why it wasn't a big red wave, despite Biden sucking very clearly, is because of abortion. Because very, very poignantly, Democrats made it an issue that Republicans had to face head on and take responsibility for politically. At the ballot box, Donald Trump does not have that same issue. Donald Trump has plausible deniability. He says, you know what? Roe v. Wade being overturned took it back to the states, which it did, and nothing past that will happen. Okay, valid. You don't have a concern there. The Supreme Court is out of Trump's hand. It's not like he's going to hand them a docket and say like, okay, here, rule on this case. It doesn't work that way. But when it comes to Joe Biden, he also doesn't have leverage over that. And so the abortion thing kind of falls in terms of turpitude, but insofar as obviously turnout dependence, it's just, it doesn't viscerally matter. If people that really care about abortion understand that they're probably already liberal to begin with, so that doesn't matter. They were going to vote for Biden regardless of Roe v. Wade. But also beyond that, those people that are really informed about abortion know damn well that Trump isn't going to really have like a congressional ban on late-term abortion or anything. And also Biden in the debate said himself that he's anti-late-term abortion, probably by accident, but still that probably lost some diehard supporters too for the liberal cause. And, you know, insofar as democracy is concerned, democracy doesn't matter. Insofar as the election, people view democracy and my institution, whatever the, you know, all that Jan 6 stuff. That's probably maybe the 6th priority. You know, notice that they didn't even talk about climate change. Again, these are very, very tertiary, kind of boutique issues at this point. What really matters to people is immigration clearly. And, you know, immigration and, the economy too. Foreign policy also doesn't even matter as much either. But it's coming to our land, obviously, when we're spending money and we're in debt. And so it becomes an issue that Trump's starting to win on. Now, this underlies the verdict of this video, where Trump increased his odds a little bit, but it's more so the fact that Joe Biden just really screwed his, okay? So it's kind of like if, you know, you had a growth spurt and you grew 2 or 3 inches, and that's great. I wish I had that. But when it comes to a guy who just had his legs chopped off from the knee down, you could see how they lost more than you gained. And so while you did gain, it's more notable that the competition just lost its legs beneath them. And so here we go. We just noticed that Joe Biden's approval rating pre-debate and post-debate is 6% in difference. Okay, so he had a 37% approval rating by the debate watchers. Now it's down to 31 post-debate. Whereas prior hand, Donald Trump was at 40 and he went up to 43. So now the gulf between the two candidates, it's 12%. So it's looking extremely mathematically improbable that Joe Biden could win this presidency or this election. Okay, another set of numbers. So Trump's negative approval. So again, like I showed you guys, Joe Biden's negative approval rating or whatever, he was unfavorably viewed by about 18%. Donald Trump was unfavorably viewed by about 11. Okay, so 11 for Trump, negative 18 for Biden. So let's look at the flash poll. Trump's unfavorable to favorable ratio basically goes down to 43 to 50. So now he's at a negative 7. Like I just showed you, Trump was at a negative 11. Now he's positively up 4 after this debate. Now, after the debate, we see that Joe Biden went from, again, negative 23 to negative 29. No, sorry, it's negative 27. Okay, so you can see how Trump did better. He's doing better now. And again, the polls are not out yet because it's too recent of a thing to do. But basically, Trump went from negative 11 to negative 7 as a vote spread, whereas Joe Biden in approval went from negative 18 to negative 27. So he's down another 10, so to speak. So, I mean, it's really, really bad. Another visualization from FiveThirtyEight that shows that I'm also right about this is here. About 50% of people and voters basically said that inflation or increasing costs overall is the biggest issue. The next biggest issue by voters is immigration at 37. Trump won those issues resoundingly prior to the debate, just on predicate of history, but also in the debate itself, in the course of it, people saw that Trump beat Biden by a lot. You saw this in the CNN polling again. So Trump beat on the economy Joe Biden by 25%. He beat Biden on immigration by about 30. And so again, these are huge issues that Joe was already losing on all fronts, and it just got worse. And insofar as like Biden's doing good, like the things that are liberal, like climate change, it's down at only 16%. Abortion, which was supposed to be the savior of the Democrat Party, is at 19. If Biden were to have a chance, honestly, abortion would have had to been like the 65% vote share of like biggest thing possible. because obviously you need abortion to save you from all the other L's that Biden's facing. But because abortion isn't that big of an issue and Biden completely failed to bring this up in the debate and kill Trump over this, much like he wants to do to fetuses, it shows that he's not capable to be a leader for the Democratic issues, It's very, very obvious. Here's another thing. Democrats historically beat Republicans on healthcare. You remember 2020, Joe Biden did really well on healthcare, in my opinion, just generally speaking. And they have a strong talking point that they provide more for the poor and the masses insofar as healthcare is concerning. But here, healthcare is only at 15% importance. It's not even on the visualization. You have to read the fine print here. Okay, 15%. Income inequality. Only 14% of people even care about that, which is nuts. Again, that's another Democratic talking point, income inequality. What sort of thing do you hear when you used to listen to Obama 15 years ago in the Wall Street crash? And that era, that was a huge issue. When it comes down to election security, that's an issue that the Democrats usually are like, oh my God, the judges left you out of court, Donald. That talking point has fallen to the wayside at an 11%. Race and racism is down at only 9%, which is really low compared to usual. Education, another thing that Democrats could do well in theoretically, only at 7%. And so, there's a lot of things here. Another super subtle point for the nerds like me. Corona right here. Okay, so Corona used to be the biggest deal, obviously, 4 years ago, and Joe Biden was beating Trump on that facet. Okay, in that way, the Democrats were leading Republicans nationwide when it came to handling of the virus and the people's perception at the time. That definitely put the nail in the coffin for the Trump campaign, if not for the thing I'm highlighting here, by the way. Election security. But, obviously, had COVID never happened, Trump would have easily beat Biden in 2020. No matter what sort of thing they did to count the ballots differently, he still would have won. So for it to be down at 1% is amazing for Donald Trump. Again, the two issues that I think lost Trump 2020, in the debate stage at least, was probably healthcare and Corona. Neither of these are even in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 issues, okay? These things that Trump lost on last time weren't even in the top 8 concerns for the American people. And that's probably why they came away with the result of a 2-3 victory, where 2/3 of people polled thought that Trump won the debate. Also, take notes, folks. Look at this. On the 2 issues that Biden was supposed to be winning on and actually did win on, according to the Ipsos poll. So again, there's a CNN poll, which obviously shows that Trump mathematically destroyed Biden. But we're also looking at the Ipsos poll, which is another functionary over here on FiveThirtyEight.com. You'll notice that when it came to extremism, Joe Biden led Donald Trump to that nebulous issue by 12 percentage points. Now on abortion, Biden beat Trump by 14. Like I said, these 2 things Trump ought to be losing by a lot on. Okay, so for example, January 6th. That was an awful thing for Republicans politically. It was a very, very, very bad look objectively. Obviously, it was ridiculous. And, obviously, Biden ought to be winning on that issue like 80-20 if the premise of the Democrats were legitimate. But they're not winning on that issue by a lot. They're winning by 14%. Or 12, actually. Only 12. That's horrible. Horrible. If the Democrats did that to Donald Trump and it was January 6th, but blue edition, Trump would be trouncing Biden and really making him look guilty over his inaction over that horrible day, obviously. And so to only be winning on such a slam dunk issue is horrible. Only by 12. You should be winning that by at least 30. And then when it comes to abortion, again, the one thing that saved the Democrats basically in 2022, basically they're only winning by 14 here. When you have Trump dead to rights, insofar as the abortion thing is concerned, at least in my opinion, if a more competent politician were up in the stage like Obama probably would have won the abortion debate by 25%, and the extremism thing, he probably would have won by 25 as well. Just like how Trump is beating Biden on inflation and immigration by 25 to 30% each. But Joe couldn't pull it off. Now, some more extra content for you guys, because I love y'all and I'm reading this for the first time, but I think this is so interesting. Who won the first 2020 presidential debate, folks? So this is just to contrast how Joe did 4 years ago versus now. So here is a super nuanced and niche thing that I'd love to talk to you guys about. So when it comes down to the first presidential election between the 2 guys in 2020 and that first debate we saw out of 2, you'll notice that Trump's disfavorability went up, and that's a bad thing, obviously. So it went up by 2. So he negatively was affected by his performance there by about a margin of about, let me see here. Okay, so he was negatively seen by the American public in 2020 by 23 percentage points. After the debate, that went up to 26. So he lost 3% support there. in that first debate performance. Donald Trump did. Joe Biden, on the other hand, actually gained support. He was winning popular support by about 2 percentage points prior to, and then after the debate, he won 7%. And so he went up 5 and Trump went down 3. So that's a split of about 7 to 8% between the two before and after the debate. So that's an 8% difference in support. And reminder, Biden barely won the 2020 election, even by the official result, which we all know is hard to believe, of course. And so with that being said, obviously I don't want to trigger the YouTube censors, but the point being is that Joe Biden won that first debate and went on to only barely win. And so imagine losing the debate for Biden in a huge way in this 2024 course of results. And now all of a sudden that election prospect for Joe nowadays is looking freaking terrible. Now, just to add even more, again, like the video and comment down below if you like the extra content. My idea for this video was to make it like 10 minutes, but I got way too into the weeds for most people's taste, but I love all the detail here. Okay, so when it comes down to the second debate, from what I remember, I just saw it actually, Trump won the debate. You know, obviously I thought Trump won the first debate, but I'm a fan. And so obviously I could see why he came off as kind of brash and was interrupting Biden too much. And I actually agree that he overdid it, because the whole point is to let Biden hang himself. And Trump was too bloodthirsty at the time. He was zealous, overzealous. The second debate, he had more of an idea of like, okay, well, you know, it's like you're coming back from the locker room halftime. You know what to do now. Play it a little more conservative because you're kind of giving up touchdowns. And so Donald Trump kind of locked in the second debate and won it. I remember most people I knew personally thought Trump won too. Now, he went on to lose that election, anyway, but it did help his odds. So let's just review this. So for starters, Trump before this debate had a negative vote share of 25, negative 25. Now, after the debate, he went to negative 22. So in the last, again, he lost ground here. So he lost 3 here on net. He gained 3 on net here. So let's compare the two results, obviously. So after the debate, there was obviously some gap between the first and the second one, where he had a negative 26. He starts off here with a negative 25. So Trump, in that debate between the two, gained 1% of support. Just because obviously when you lose, there's some time, time heals all. But obviously if Biden does the same and he loses so bad in this debate, this year, and he goes up 1% in support, that's still a ginormous deficit, obviously. Now, Biden came into the debate with a positive 4% vote share in support. Okay, so favorable, unfavorable. After the debate performance where Trump won, in my opinion, he went up to 7. So Trump salvaged his election prospects a little bit, but it was not enough to change the result. And so you have Trump losing, not really convincingly, but he objectively lost that first debate against Biden. And then in the second debate, he objectively won, but it still did not make him win the election. Okay. Whereas with Joe Biden, he got fucking destroyed in this most recent election, obviously, in this most recent polling. And so with that being said, no debate performance he could ever have 3 months from now is going to save his odds, in my opinion. So after 33 minutes of intense analysis, I hope you have a better idea as to why mathematically it has been proven with stats that Joe Biden got trounced in this debate. It's the worst debate performance of my lifetime. And I'll go as far as to say that it's the worst debate performance in Joe Biden's lifetime, which actually includes all of the debates that there's ever been on television. Isn't that insane? But anyways, I'll see y'all in the next one. Adios.